Hi guys, and welcome to my roundup for my first project pan, which was pan 18 in 2018. I was about a month off on starting this. I didn't actually start my project pan until February of 2018, so I kind of gave myself a couple extra weeks in January to try and use up some more of these products, and I kind of want to get started on my project pan for 2019 a little sooner than I did last year. So I'm going to film these videos back to back and hopefully get them up for you rather quickly so that you can kind of see how did I do in 2018, and then I'm going to film a second video where I kind of talk about what I learned in 2018 and also kind of the new thought process I had based on how this pan went last year for how I wanted to go into it in 2019. I was trying to pan 18 items in 2018. For me, that meant a couple of different things. When it came to sort of cream liquid products, I wanted to completely use them up. As it related to powder products in a pan, I actually wanted to hit pan. So that's kind of how I was thinking about it. If it was cream or liquid, I wanted to try and use it up completely. And then if it was a powder, I wanted to hit pan on it. So that was kind of my goal going into this, having never done a project pan at all. Without further ado, let's talk about how I did with my pan 18 in 2018. The first product that I had in this was actually a primer. I used this primer up completely and I put it into my Empties video. I think it was my last Empties video where we talked about it. So if you want a lot more detail on how I felt about that primer, I absolutely do love it quite a bit. It was from IT Cosmetics. It was their number 50 primer. It had a bunch of anti-aging ingredients as well as very moisturizing and smoothing. So that one was 100% used up. I would say about 2/3 of the way through the year, and I think that was pretty good for me considering the fact that I was trying other primers and testing lots of other products throughout the year. I think if I wasn't in a test mode for my channel, I definitely feel like I could get through these project pan items faster, but I have to kind of balance my day-to-day life with my testing life, and so all that to say, I definitely felt like I could get through a primer even in that kind of scenario in fairly short order. So I was pleased with that. As it relates to foundation products, we had 3. So for the first one was my IT Cosmetics CC cream. I completely used this guy up. I ultimately decided, I know that there's still some product in here that I might be able to cut and get out of here. I ultimately decided I just didn't want to deal with the mess. I feel like I've used this up as much as I personally want to. And I do have a backup of this as well that I pulled into my drawer to use going forward. So this one I was able to finish up in 2018, so I was glad to see that. The other foundation I'm also kind of counting as done. This is my Urban Decay Naked Skin Weightless Ultra Definition Liquid Makeup. I really do like this one. Now, there is a little bit left in the bottom here, but as I noted in my last check-in, I really felt like the consistency of it was shifting quite a bit. And it really wasn't adhering to my skin or looking like skin the way that I remember this product doing for the first half of the year. A couple of reasons that could have happened. One, you do have to shake this up quite a bit, so potentially what's left at the bottom is not maybe as liquidy or as true to formula as it was at the beginning because I'm left with the kind of residue at the bottom. The other thing, and this is kind of what caused me to stop using this, even though I probably have, I don't know, a few more pumps of this in here. It started to separate and look really weird in the bottom, the little part that was left. I also started to notice after days that I wore this, like 2 or 3 days in a row, that I was starting to get little pimples in weird places, like here on my cheeks. I get acne around my chin as that time of the month. That's pretty normal for me. Occasional little flare up here or there goes away pretty quickly. But this was like weird spots, like on my forehead and cheeks and places that I don't ever really get acne. So I started to feel like, this was old, the foundation was changing, it may have expired. And so I just decided the last couple months of the year to just full stop on this. I want to use up products, but not at the risk of hurting my skin and not at the risk of giving myself or putting bacteria on my skin. So I'm going to count this one as done. It was like, I don't know, 95% done, and I feel comfortable chucking this out of my collection and calling it panned. The last foundation is the Never Ending Makeup Forever Ultra HD Stick. Guys, I really wanted to come here and tell you that this was done, but there is still the teeny tiniest little bit at the top of this. It's driving me crazy. I was traveling with this and nothing but this for all of my work trips in December. Like, you will get through this. And from what a number of you have shared with me, there's actually a little reservoir actually in there that you could use a little spatula and pull some out too. So I'm a little disappointed, but I'm also kind of shocked at how long this has lasted me, because when I apply this, it's not like I'm just doing like one stripe per cheek. I'm doing quite a few little swipes all over my face. So I'm quite impressed with how long this has lasted me. So it's not quite done. I'm going to call this like 95% finished. Next up, the concealer that I had on my project this year was my Milani Retouch and Erased. I really do like this concealer quite a bit. I think it's pretty comfortable. It's creamy. It's medium coverage, so it's definitely not for those of you who are looking for a concealer to just wipe out all the dark circles underneath your eyes. But in general, on a day-to-day basis, I like this quite a bit. I think it's a nice formula. Now, things I don't like about this, the sponge tip is rock hard. So unlike that Maybelline one that's super soft and fluffy, the Instant Age Rewind, this one is like rock hard. So I just kind of use it to smear around my eyes, and then I'm blending it in with my beauty blender. So, I mean, it works, it's fine, but really this is not the best application method for this concealer, and I probably would like it better if it was in a traditional wand type packaging. I'm having a hard time gauging how much is left in here. If I'm being totally honest, I took the cap off so that I could actually squirt some out. I feel like I'm down to the very, very dredges. But it coats the inside of this container so well that I feel like I'm having a hard time telling. So, you know, if I'm squeezing at the bottom here and waiting for product to come out the top, there's not much left. In fact, okay, there we go. I just got a tiny little bit as I squeezed at the top. So I probably have, I don't know, 4 or 5 uses maybe left in here, if that, and then I would consider this guy completely panned. So I also selected a powder to pan this year, and this was my Milani Prep Set and Glow powder. I really do like this one for setting my face. I feel like it gives me the ability to set a very liquidy foundation without necessarily adding a ton of powder onto my skin, so that is my preference. I've slowly but surely seeing this pan get bigger and bigger and bigger throughout the year. I'm definitely having to be careful now because the pan is so large that I'm grabbing my powder brush and swirling it several times and twisting and angling it a little differently to make sure that I actually have powder on my brush. So that is kind of the downside when it gets to this sort of a pan perspective, is just trying to get an even application of powder all over my brush. But I'm pleased with the progress in this one. Like I said, I had no idea how long it would take me to go through these kinds of powders because, like I said, I've been using other powders throughout the year as well, and I'm pleased with how this one panned on me. All right, let's talk about bronzers. So I selected the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. It is the Never Ending bronzer for me. Now, I will say that I've tried to film up close-up shots of this and then comparing it against my last check-in, so you can kind of see how it was maybe 3 months ago and then versus where it is now. I've been filming these updates quarterly. There is a large divot to my eye, but it is very hard for me to get that to show on camera. It's driving me crazy. I tried filming 1,000 different angles so that you guys could see the well that is in here. I have not hit pan on this though. I'm a little disappointed. I feel like I used it a absolute ton this year. Now, I will also admit I have fair skin, and this is their light bronzer, but even still, when I go and apply bronzer, I'm still going in with a light hand. I'm not loading it up because I'm so fair that even a light bronzer, if I use a heavy hand, I start to look really strange. So I have to be careful not to go too ham on bronzers, and maybe that's why this one hasn't panned, but it definitely has a huge divot in it. When I started it at the beginning of the year, it was fully waved and looked beautiful as far as a pattern, and that pattern has definitely eroded throughout the year. But I was hoping by the end of the year to have a pan on this, and it's not there. My blush, on the other hand, has shown lovely progress. So this is the e.l.f. blush in Malone Mauve. It has definitely continued to grow as far as the pan in the corner as I've used it more and more, and I love this color. I think it's absolutely beautiful. It's funny. when I was filming my best of beauty sort of roundup for the year, I noticed that this shade is remarkably close to the Flesh and Fantasy shade from Marc Jacobs, and it's probably why I love both of them so much. So if the Marc Jacobs Flesh and Fantasy blush just seems too extreme of a purchase for you, I would definitely recommend checking out Mellow Mauve. It is available at almost all the drugstores, at least in my area, actually in store. And then I've actually know for a fact that it is on Ulta's website as well. It's a $3 blush, and I think it has a very similar sheen and color to the Marc Jacobs Flesh and Fantasy blush when you swirl all the lines together. So I have loved this blush this year, and I'm really happy that I achieved my goal and I have a large pan on this powder product. For highlighter, I started out with a highlighter that was pretty new to my collection and didn't have a lot of love or wear and tear on it, and that was the Cover FX. This is the Moonlight, the perfect light highlighting powder in the shade Moonlight. I also have a hard time showing divots in here on my camera when I'm filming close-ups, but there is a really strong divot in the center of this highlighter. However, it is not panned. I feel like I would probably need another good 4 to 6 months before you saw a significant pan on this. It's a highlighter. I mean, let's be clear. I mean, it's the size of this powder. This I'm putting all over my face. This is getting dusted at just high points of my cheeks and a little bit down the bridge of my nose. So clearly it's going to take a lot longer to go through a highlighter than a face powder, but still, I'm not gonna lie, I was really significantly concentrating my brush right in the center, trying to hit that pan, and it didn't happen, folks. Let's talk about a couple of cream/liquid products that I had for face. I picked a little duo from e.l.f. This is their Bronzed Pink Beige. This has a blush on one side and a bronzer on the other. I really like the consistency of these products. My goal was to hit pan on the bronzer. Here's what I'm noticing. I kept feeling like I was getting close to pan, and you can really see the shape of the pan there at the bottom. Like, you can tell, like, it's barely covered up with product, but I use a sponge most times when I do this. So I'm kind of dabbing in, and what I'm noticing is that I'm pulling product down into the center with my sponge as I'm applying it. So it's hard for me to concentrate and just hit pan. I'm dragging the whole product around in the pan as I'm using my sponge. So I keep thinking, oh, I'm going to hit pan this round, and then product sort of moves more into the middle as I go and apply it. So this is one that I feel like is going to have to be almost close to mostly used up in total before I really see pan, at least how I'm applying it with a sponge right now. So I do really like this one. I'm a little bummed that I don't have pan on it, but I do love this bronzer as my cream bronzer in the summertime. I think it's just a really nice natural shade. I did use the blush quite a bit as well, but it's not something I was actively reaching for. It's a little too bright pink for my everyday sort of blush preferences. If a look made sense for me to kind of pair these two, I did, but I didn't feel like it was a blush shade kind of like the e.l.f. one that was more natural, that matched a ton of things. I really wanted pink cheeks if I was going to use this blush. In terms of a liquid highlighter, I actually had the Wet n Wild Mega Cushion Highlighter. They have one shade in Who's That Pearl. I will say I thought I was pretty much done with this, and then I went and flipped the sponge and realized I actually had some product here at the bottom still. So I'm going to try and show you. There's not much left. I'm going to pull the sponge out here. I should have done this with the close-up, but there is a teeny tiny bit of product here around the edges now that I have flipped the sponge. I would say this is probably going to give me a few weeks of highlighter inside of here. I did really enjoy this highlighter. I enjoyed pairing the highlighter with my powder highlighter. So putting this on first, it gives a really natural, subtle glow. It also looked really nice on days when I was not doing any sort of face makeup. I just wanted a little glow on my cheeks. That's when I really enjoy a liquid highlighter. So I liked this one. I will probably continue to use this up and pull it into my everyday makeup drawer so that I can completely use it up here over the next couple of months. But This lasted really well, and I think it's an absolutely gorgeous highlighter at the drugstore. All right, I had a brow product that I was able to use up by the end of the year. I am ecstatic about this. This is my Brow Power from It Cosmetics. This thing lasts forever, and it's funny, a couple of you guys commented that this is a brow product that you have enjoyed, and you're just shocked at how long it lasts, even with everyday use. A lot of you guys commented that you used one of these a year, which is kind of crazy because when you think about it, a lot of the Anastasia Brow Wizzes and popular eyebrow products out there, like you go through them in a couple of months. I mean, if you're lucky, some people I've seen go through a Brow Wiz a month. So to have a brow pencil that is really nice and ashy, I think would work for a lot of people. I don't think it's going to work for everyone. They call it a universal taupe shade. I think it's going to work for most people, unless you've got really, really dark blackish brows, or you've got something super, super blonde. But even still, if you use a light hand with this, I think you could get away with it. Or if you're somebody with natural red hair and natural red eyebrows and you need an auburn shade. But in general, I actually think this would work for quite a lot of people. I did really enjoy it. It took me freaking forever to use up. I was never so happy as to see the end of this pencil. I still remember when I finished, or I went to, actually I had one brow done and the other one wasn't quite done. And I was like, all of a sudden it like scratched on my face and I'm like, oh, I'm gone, it's done. And I did a little happy dance here in this makeup room. So Brow Power is done for the year. I had one eye product for this year, and it was a ColourPop Single Shadow in Waddles, which is one of their satin shades. I went back and I looked at my last check-in and tried to compare the pan that's in here to the pan that was from the last check-in, and I don't really notice a ton of difference. I think the biggest reason for that is this is drying out. So the product that is the most dried out is where it's thinnest, right around the pan. So as I've been using it and applying it, I've still been able to pick it up with a brush, but I've kind of had to use the areas around the outside. So I don't necessarily think the pan has grown a ton. Honestly, my intention now that this pan is over for the year is to actually do my little trick to salvage a ColourPop shadow that has dried out. I will link that video down below. If you have any ColourPop shadows that are drying out, there is a great technique that I discovered that I can use to recover a ColourPop shadow and make it just as creamy as it was when I first got it. Like I said, I'll link that video down below, and if you're curious, but I do need to do that to this shadow, but I did want to wait until I filmed this video so I could just acknowledge that the pan size hasn't gotten any bigger. This is going off to the side to be recovered. I do love this shadow and I will continue to use it until I use it up. My last four products are all lip products. So I had a Charlotte Tilbury Lip Cheat in Pillow Talk. I do love this pencil. I love the color of it. It's definitely really a lot shorter than my last check-in, but I have to be honest, I've noticed something about me and lip products. A, I like to mix things up, but B, they go into the bottom abyss of my bags. And so what I mean is I'll travel and I put it in my travel bag and then I'll forget about it and I'll be in here getting ready and I just won't want to go find it. So what happens with these project pans for a lot of these products is I'm applying them and then I'm putting them in my handbag or my travel bag, and then I'm using them for that day or for that trip, and then they sit in there for weeks and weeks on end because I don't have the discipline or I don't think of going and getting them and putting them back into these drawers so that as I'm getting ready in the morning, they're front and center. So I will go for weeks on end without using these because they're sitting in my bag. So, bah. All that to say, I do feel like I used up about half of what I started with this year. Maybe not quite half. Maybe that's being generous. I can't quite remember how long this pencil was. But I do feel like I will continue to use this pencil. I do love it. It is probably one of my most used lip shades. So there is that. I did use up one of my sort of lip glossy products. This was from Repurchase. This was the lip cushion. These used to be available at Ulta. They've discontinued carrying them. I don't think they had a great review, mostly because I don't think people liked using this sponge tip, but I can't get any more product out. It is sort of a twisty one. It's definitely done. I do like this, but yeah, this one is completely used up. I also had a Marc Jacobs gloss. This is in French Tickler. There is very little product left in here. I was trying to have it sit here as I was filming the first part, and I've been kind of tapping it to try and get the gloss to slide down so I can actually see what's left. But as I move the wand around, Oh, maybe that's the best way to do it. I filmed close-ups, but sometimes I feel like when I film close-ups, I don't actually get great shots of product. It's actually further down than there. I'm smearing it along the sides so you can't see. I would say I probably have maybe like this much left here at the bottom. It's mostly used up, and it's a shade that I absolutely love and adore. And I think once I use up some other glosses in my collection throughout the year, I could see myself getting another version of this. It's just a really pretty peachy light gloss that pairs really well with every nude lipstick I own in my collection. So I would say I got really close on this one, but not quite there yet. Oh, and way to end on a Debbie Downer. Okay, my last product, MAC lipstick. This is in the shade Blankety. It's definitely been used. So one of the things that I definitely noticed about this lipstick color in particular is that it's pretty light. It's a nice sort of pinky nude color, but it's a lot lighter than I typically wear. So if I want a really pale sort of washed out nude lip, this is a great shade for me because it's more pinky brown than sort of warmish coral. So this is a good color when I want that light washed out lip look, but it's not the nude color that I love the most. I like something just a hint darker, something that's more comparable to what I have on my lips today, that's still a light nude on me, but not quite as washed out as this shade. So there were a lot of days where I would go and I would apply this to use up more of it through my pan, and I would just look in the mirror and be like, ugh, it's too pale, it washes me out, it's not right for this look. So I do think that that was part of the reason this also didn't quite get used up throughout the year. Heads up, there is a lipstick in my 2019 project pan, so I am going to try this again and see if it's possible for me to use up an entire lipstick in a year, given how I like to mix things up and test and try things. But unfortunately, that is the last product to share with you guys, and it is not one that I came anywhere near to using up. Alright guys, so that wraps up sort of my finale for Pan 18 in 2018. I hope you guys enjoyed following this series. I think it's a lot of fun to kind of see and learn from how we use up makeup when it's in a project pan like this. I certainly have enjoyed watching a lot of other people in the beauty community on YouTube and on Reddit talk about products that they are using up. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be filming my 2019 project here shortly, so look for that video. If it's already up, I will link it down below. But I hope you guys are having an amazing day. Talk to you soon. Bye.